I've worked a ransomware incident where they, encrypted everybody, and you call the number that's on there, and it was a call center. I mean, it was like talking to an IT help desk.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the CEO Hot Seat. Today we got two special guests, Eric Hester and Michelle Gimmi with Umbrella Technology Group. How you guys doing today?
Great, man. Glad
Fantastic.
We're glad to have you. So tell us a little bit about what Umbrella Technology is.
Well, there's what it is and what it's been, I guess. It's been interesting. Started it in April of 2020, so you can imagine how that went. My initial idea was obviously to bring technology services, hence the name, to small businesses.
Yeah.
So my background is more on the larger enterprise side. So, I started in the 90s, built one of the first internet providers in South Carolina that kind of grew up into what is now Windstream. And that's where I met Michelle, was at Nuvox at the time. And so that was one of the first competitive telephone companies. So I was in my 20s, learned a lot, got a lot of opportunity there. I'm sure we'll talk about, a lot of opportunity to fail and learn from that. And kind of kept doing that. Worked for places like Bank of America and Wells Fargo, doing work with a vendor for security and voice over IP and things like that. So the idea was to take all that stuff I'd done and try to bring it to small business, which don't usually get access to that level of experience. And if they do, it's usually very expensive, so they just can't do it. But as I said, when COVID hit, not really the time to start a business. It takes a lot of face-to-face and really hard to get meetings. So we kind of pivoted a little bit. We did who was in business still and who came back, which was like dentists. Churches became another one, because churches really started using technology in a way they hadn't before, which is a really good example, because we want to help people like that are doing something with technology that, is really involved in the community and making a difference. So was never really the intent, but that's kind of how it's gone with every business I've had.
Sure.
It's close to what I started and what I wanted to do, but you go where the business is and how the idea kind of morphs as you get going.
Yeah,
so,
sure. What are some of the services that you offer?
So primarily during the last few years, it's been, small business IT.
Okay.
So we come in and the big differentiator is, it's not like we come in and say, here's the Umbrella way. We're going to change out all your computers. We're going to do this, whatever. It's more, hey, what are your problems? What are the challenges you're having? And how can we help you? And so that may not be, just working on their computers. It may be, doing access control on their doors and cameras. It may be helping them get their Wi-Fi working better everywhere. It may be getting their printers working and stuff like that more often than not. Kind of the way I approach it is, tell me the things that, make you call your computer a piece of crap every day.
So setting up networks and running low volt wires and stuff.
Yeah. Anything really related to technology.
So we're doing mostly commercial work?
Yeah. No residential.
That's
really.
what I was going to ask about, like COVID, starting a business right when most businesses are getting away from commercials.
Right. Well, that was the challenge, is obviously, everything I was doing was based around an office and things there. So I considered, kind of figuring out how to do work from home. But, the reality is that's not my experience. So, I mean, you can pivot, but don't pivot to something you're not good at.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's not that I couldn't have figured it out, but, I would have had really not any differentiator from someone else doing that who's been doing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to, like I said, just find people that didn't go home. And even, like I said, with churches, use technology more than they used to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been pretty successful. And so what I'm changing it into now, though, based on all of that, is really a focus around, everybody generally calls it cybersecurity, but I'm kind of changing it more to just risk management in general. Right. And I think that's what, from the time I've been doing this the last 3 years, I've seen is businesses don't do a very good job of that, of like figuring out, really sitting down and saying, what are the risks to my business? And they could be technology or not. A lot of times it's things like, I've talked to you before, Chris, about processes and really just having things documented and being able to scale because it's not the Chris show or whatever, and that applies a lot to technology, because if you don't have processes and you don't have really what your risks are figured out, you're not going to apply technology properly. You're just going to buy a bunch of stuff and it may help you, it may not.
And not use it to its full capacity.
Right. So that's really what I'm kind of, morphing into more, is doing assessments of people's business with a, obviously a focus on technology, but not just, a technology audit. It's really, are you running your business efficiently, and where are you not running it efficiently, and where do you have big risk gaps? And then how can we apply technology to fix that? Because a huge number of problems that people think are technology end up being people and process, right? I mean, you may be trying to apply technology somewhere you shouldn't even be applying it. You just need to write down what you're doing and get everybody on the same page doing it. They don't need to be inefficient and going to use a program to do something if it's just follow these 10 steps every time.
Sure.
So one of the things that's proven to be really helpful is just to sit down with somebody. You can even do this pre-sales, and I think this would apply to a lot of businesses, really, is instead of trying to say, here's what we do and just spill out, here's our services, it always works better to ask people and talk to people and make it their idea, right? So we do a risk assessment, which is just a little spreadsheet that says, what is the risk? How likely is it it's going to happen? How big a deal would it be if it happened? Then how easy is it to fix? I seed that with like 3 or 4 things that I have anecdotes about that I can talk about that I know everybody has. And that gets them talking, and then they'll spill out, 20 problems they have that I have solutions for.
Sure.
Right. So if you make it their idea, you're not selling to them anymore. So that's why I don't really like answering the question of what are your products?
Sure.
My response is, well, what are your problems? And I think that's a much better way to approach it. It's a much more interactive sales process. It's not something you can, cold call around and do.
Michelle, what do you do at Umbrella Technology? What is your title?
I am the Hester Wrangler.
The Hester Wrangler.
Keep the ideas contained.
He's got all the great ideas, and he is got this huge technological nerd brain.
Yeah.
And I have to rein it in pretty much. Yeah. I keep it in track and organized and make sure he's where he needs to be.
Nice.
But I do all the back offices. I'm the operations.
How is it transitioning from like a corporate job to small business?
It's been a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the good or for the bad or what?
It's different.
Yeah.
Because going from a large corporate company, there's a lot of processes and everything in place, and it's a lot more organized. Going into a brand new small business and trying to create all of that has been different, because we're having to build it all from scratch. So it's kind of go with the flow and change when you need to change.
It's got to be a lot more rewarding though, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Once you do complete something, you figure something out, it's got to be a lot more rewarding.
It absolutely is, because, Eric and I consider this our little baby, and this is our family.
Yeah.
And that's how we want our clients to feel. It's like we're part of your family. We want to come in and be part of your family. We want to sit with you. We want to be a part. We want everybody to know who we are, and that's one of the things we do different from other MSPs out there. Is we actually go on site and sit there with our clients. We have a designated day that we go out and say, "Hey, we're in conference room A. If you need us, come by," just so we can fit in and feel like we're part of their team.
Go over their assessment and everything.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, I mean, this is after the fact, after they've been our customer for a while. What generally happens, and this happens with a lot of recurring service businesses, you do a lot up front, and then you move on to the next customer and do a lot up front, and you're then in reactive mode waiting for them to call you. And it's just human nature. People don't call you when they should, and then things fester and build up into, they've got 20 things, and now they're back to where they don't like their technology, they don't like what you're providing them, and you don't even know it. So we've always had the philosophy of, we've told them we're just going to pop in Well, we've structured that even more now, where we're just not going to just pop in. You're going to know we're there, every other Tuesday or whatever the case is. And like she said, we'll be in this conference room. Y'all come by and see us. And if you don't show up, we're going to come over and see you.
That's awesome. I think that goes missed a lot. And like in my business, I know that like a lot of renovation guys always go from one job to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started implementing warranty calls so that I know like every 6 months or every year I would go back to that person's house and do just a touch up. And I wouldn't even argue with them what's warrantable or not, because I knew that I'd get more business from that.
Absolutely.
Because 9 times out of 10, they're like, well, while you guys are here, can you take a look at that other thing that I was looking at? Because if not, if your business isn't on the top of their mind, they just throw that recommendation on or the referral on Facebook and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody. And it's like, I do that too. Why didn't you call me? But they just didn't think about it,
Yeah. I mean, I think being present with your customers is huge.
Yeah.
And I don't think people intentionally, do it. It's just you're busy and everyone always thinks the new customer is what you're, is most important you're trying to get. That's how you build your business. But
your existing
you've got this big pool of potential revenue sitting there of people who already know what you can do.
He's capitalized on it. Just the referrals and the 5-star reviews. I mean, just getting that many people to kind of build your brand for you is huge.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, any service business, I mean, you've got to do marketing and you've got to spend time, but referrals and word of mouth and, a friend telling somebody that you should use this company is way more powerful than anything else.
Yeah.
And knowing how to ask for referrals, right? So like if we do a great job, then how do we ask that customer we just did a great job for, hey, do you know anybody moving for our case? So
or even for the review.
We're really capitalizing on how do we ask and when do we ask and how often we ask. Right.
One of the things that I was going to ask is anytime you change over any type of technology with a new business, it's extremely difficult to implement. It's not quick. Like you mentioned, a lot of these big corporations have that process already built in, but now a lot of these small businesses are trying to learn a new process, and that is usually a nightmare. So I'm sure you guys have a better way of helping them through that and setting the expectation in the beginning.
Yeah, anytime we do any kind of implementation or migration or anything like that, we usually do lunch and learns, right? So we'll bring in lunch and, because if you just say we're going to do training or you got a new process, or everybody glosses over it, anything to do with it. But if you put food,
bring food,
you put food in the mix, everybody shows up. And, you can make it less intimidating
for sure,
and kind of talk through it. So training is a huge part of what we have to do. And it's not always, formal style. A lot of times, again, we're trying to figure out how people work. So usually what we're doing is implementing a process that we've already talked about. So it's not as foreign to them. But I mean, the people part of it is huge. And again, that's why when we pop in, sometimes that's what it is we'll talk about something topical that's going on, like a security threat that's been happening. For instance, there's one that's been going on at churches, where someone will social engineer the front desk person and say, I'm elder so-and-so, because they went to the webpage and got a list of the elders and said, I'm elder so-and-so. I just need a church directory, a member directory. I'm working on a project with a senior pastor, and, who would think of anything's wrong with that? So they send them a directory and then they SMS spam all the members in the church saying they're the senior pastor and you need to go get gift cards for a donation. And then they scrape all the cards. So, we've been trying to do, just pop in and say, hey, this is happening, and we worked with one of the denomination organizations and did a blog post that they sent out to all of their churches, member churches, just kind of explaining a simple concept of trust but verify, right? And so we can take something complicated and say, you don't have to worry about all the ways they're going to do it and everything else. Just, you're a church. I know you want to be helpful and trust everybody, but if somebody is who they say they are, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, can I call you back at the number I have on file for you? Or
something.
Let me pop down the hall and talk to the senior pastor and make sure he's cool with this. That shouldn't be insulting to somebody who is who they say they are, but if they're not, they're going to hang up. So trying to boil things down to more simple solutions is huge, I think.
How prevalent is like cybersecurity threats right now, like to a small business?
It's massive, honestly.
Are y'all seeing any cases or?
Yeah,
firsthand,
I mean, it's the most common things by far are the phishing attempts where people are getting credentials to, depends what they get, but there's a lot of cases of people scraping money out of bank accounts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the impersonation attempts where they say, hey, like somebody would be, at Swamp Rabbit would say, hey, it's Chris. I'm in Chicago up at another moving company. I just worked out something with them. I need 10 grand, sent to this account for this agreement we just did. If they're good at it, they'll have read your emails before because they've logged in. They'll sound like you.
Yeah.
If you're quick fire and just send one sentence to do something like that, that's how they do it. If you're a kind of person that writes 2 pages to get something like that done, that's what they'll do.
Will they even use poor grammar and bad spelling?
Yeah, they'll do what they'll do. Whatever.
They got me now.
Yeah, they'll do whatever. They'll do whatever you normally do. If you're a real formal writer, they'll do it that way.
Some of them don't even have to, though. I was just dealing with UPS on Friday, like the stores, and I called to say, hey, can you check my mailbox, let our admin take the mail and give her a key. They never asked for anything.
Yep.
So they let this girl randomly take my stuff. They never asked who I was until and they card on file everything.
If there's one takeaway as far as like if we're actually going to give some advice for cybersecurity, it's the trust but verify, right?
Yeah.
Because it's human nature to trust. If you're confident, the number one thing with social engineering is act like you're supposed to be there, and people will think you're supposed to be there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. So if you call in confidently, and the person's name, you're cordial with them. It's just human nature just to accept it and roll with it. They got a million things to do. They don't care if someone gets your mail. When it comes down to it,
especially if they've never dealt with you too much personally.
The bottom line is you're one of 100 people that have called them today.
Yeah.
And they just want to get on to the next thing. So if you don't create any friction, there's not going to be any friction. People are way easier to hack than technology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was about to say. It's like, a lot of people, when you say cybersecurity, they're thinking they're coming in and they're hacking our computers and they're getting our bank accounts. That's not normally how a small business gets hacked. It's somebody walking in or somebody calling on the phone and getting information.
Yeah. They're also going to go after the business owners too, because they know you're typically a high wealth individual then. They're going to look at your company. If your company's successful, they're going to know you're successful.
Mm-hmm. I ain't got nothing.
Yeah. Well,
Chicken nuggets.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
And you hear all the time on the news about all these large corporations getting hacked, like Target or even the pipeline a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But small businesses are more likely to be hacked than one of those larger corporations because the corporations have the security assessments in place.
Yeah.
Small businesses usually don't. So they're going to go for 10, 15 different small businesses and get the same amount of money from the small businesses than they would a corporation, and it's 10 times easier.
That makes sense.
Following the IRS.
They can automate attacking 100 people, with emails.
Yeah.
And get much more return. Because if you think about it, like at a large corporation, there's not anybody you can call, like one person that has access to their bank account.
Sure.
You can't just like say, hey, I need you to like, there's just not those people that you're going to get access to. But if you're a 5-person company, the person that answers the phone probably has access to the bank account.
Yeah.
Right. So
that makes sense.
Somebody out there is listening and learning right now.
These don't make the news, right?
Small
somebody stealing 20 grand from a small business, that doesn't make the news.
No.
It happens all the time. So, it's people are embarrassed. They don't want to tell people it happened and everything else. Cause I get that all the time that people say
it hurts your business.
Yeah. I don't know anybody that it's happened to. Well, your neighbor's not going to tell you that they messed up and lost 20 grand. That's not going to happen. So yes, it's pretty prevalent is the short answer. And it's only getting worse because it's only getting easier. The skills of a hacker aren't just a nerd sitting in a basement anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business, and especially like in Eastern Europe. They have call centers. It's crazy. I've worked a ransomware incident where they encrypted everybody, and you call the number that's on there, and it was a call center. It was like talking to an IT help desk, and they basically this person paid. When they paid, they sent them emails with here's how to fix everything. And they even sent them an email at the end that said, this is how you can keep this from happening again.
Oh, wow.
It was the weirdest experience I've ever had in my life, that it was like, is there anything else I can do for you today?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, this is a real business.
Yeah.
You got 2 minutes at the end of the call for a survey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really helped me out.